This is a preview of the Roman chapter in Jensen's Art History, the Western Tradition. This is chapter 7. This module deals entirely with Rome. And the reason is that Rome is a big subject. In fact, you could argue that more has been written about Rome than any other time period in the history of art. There's just a lot to say about Rome, and it's important to the Western tradition because Rome is where the Western tradition and Western culture solidifies. It has its birth in the Fertile Crescent and Mesopotamia and then Greece, but it really takes shape and form in Rome. And we see it in the art, we see it in the architecture, we see it in the philosophy, we see it in the power of government and the structures of government. And the book says, of all the civilizations of the ancient world, the most accessible to modern scholars is the culture of ancient Rome, a vast literary legacy ranging from poetry and histories to inscriptions that recorded everyday events reveals a great deal about Roman culture. The Romans also built a vast number of monuments throughout their empire, which are extraordinarily well preserved. Yet there are few questions more difficult to than address than what is Roman art? Because it's a complicated subject that covers a long time period. It has its beginning with Etruscan art, and that kind of is the same time period as the Aegean art. And Rome started as a small city-state, but then it grew in power. And one way to understand Rome is to understand the power of the military and the power of the government, is that Rome conquered all of these surrounding city-states and then absorbed their own culture. So as Rome grew, and as they overtook places like Greece and places of northern Italy, like the Veneto region and Siena, they absorbed the different stylistic tendencies that they saw in those places, especially Greek art. So early Roman art is kind of very heavily influenced by Greek art, especially Greek sculpture and Greek architecture. And many of the examples of Greek art that we see are Roman copies, right? Because the Romans, especially wealthy Romans and Rome proper, would have Greek statues taken from the original spot to Rome, and then they would copy them and kind of distribute them throughout the land. And so today, the original may be gone, but the Roman copy is still around. The other thing that the Romans did that is unique to art history is their grand public monuments and their grand public building programs. So if you look at the aqueducts, if you look at the Colosseum, you're going to see these huge structures that could only be accomplished through the vast power and all of the money and the organization of the Roman government. Kind of paying for these programs to bring water from the outside into Rome, to have a working sewer system, and then the development and perfection of the use of concrete. That's a really important part of understanding Rome, because a lot of these structures are still around to this day because the Romans perfected the use of using concrete in building. And they did it really well. And so even today, thousands of years later, we still see Roman structures that are still there, and will be there for a long time because people are preserving these sites now. So you're going to see how Greece influences Rome, in terms of style, how Rome develops the Roman arch as a way to build up. You're going to see that instead of exploring sculptural modes of gods and goddesses, which they do that a little bit, they mostly focus on the government officials. So instead of seeing a statue of a god, you'll see a statue of a Roman senator or of Augustus as shown like a god. So it becomes art that has a political propaganda kind of purpose. Instead of exploring idealized beauty that we saw in Greek, we see politicians and government leaders having their own portraits shown like they are gods in the Greek tradition. So read over the chapter. I believe there's 2 quizzes, and they cover part 1 and part 2 of Rome, because Rome is so vast. We want to kind of hyper focus. There's also there's an essay on Roman art as well. If you have any questions, contact me at conm@iacc.edu. Thank you. Have a good day.